All right, now, everybody. Quiet, listen to me. We're going to start a show. Now, some of you people have been with me before. You know it's going to be a tough grind, but we're going to have a show.
And hello, all. East Coast, West Coast, all the places in between and beyond. We are on the air. A live show. 2 hours Monday through Friday. So glad that you could join us. This was a radio show, and we brought it to YouTube, and now we are enjoying a community here in YouTube that we never even dreamed we'd be able to enjoy at the levels and with the sort of depth that we have bonded to this community. It is a Kim who you see there in the smaller box, and you may say, why?
Kim, how are you?
Why do you put her in the smaller box? I mean, I think that's a reasonable question. And the truth is, I wanted an even smaller box. But
what?
I like being in the small box.
No, I know. That's the real reason. She does not want to be. She does not want to be on video at all, actually. So this is about the best we could get.
I blame you.
Yeah, probably my fault somehow. Tony is here. He is the wonderful technical wizard who puts it all together today. What a show. The developments in the Epstein case. Donald Trump speaks, and we learn that he doesn't know what he's talking about. And David Cay Johnston, an hour or two today. Yeah, really excited about the Pulitzer Prize winner, of course, Jefferson Graham, Tech Tuesdays, and Stephen Hassan, who is the noted professor, a renowned expert in cults. He joins us bottom of the hour. He wrote the book, The Cult of Trump, and he is a remarkable story himself. He's a friend of the show and has been on before. And you may find his story, I mean, even before he gets to Trump and he gets to cults, you may find his story riveting, which we'll take a quick beat to establish when he joins us bottom of this hour. And then we'll get into a bit of what's happening with Donald Trump and the cult of MAGA, which I believe extends beyond Trump. But clearly Trump is a transformative figure to produce this. And we're not all Trump all the time, but let's face it, he's the president and he's wrecking the country. So you have to, I think to ignore it is, look, that's my opinion. You may feel as though he's liberating the country from those evil Democrats. That's cool too. You're allowed here. You're allowed to clap back at me. It's
Look away.
It's my disposition that there's some real damage being done in the first 6 months here. I did want to acknowledge early on, because he wrote me several emails explaining his altered state over the weekend.
I've received a lot of positive letters.
Richard Delamater, who is our resident, he's a deadhead. He's like a traditional, I kind of view him as a traditional deadhead flower child of the 60s and 70s. Sure. And here he is. My people, he says, yes, in capital letters with a $20 super chat. I did LSD. But what the media took out of context was that I was at Golden Gate Park with Dead and Company, and I was trying to psychically bring Mark and Courtney into the tree hugger party. I see.
What?
All right. Love me, don't mock me, he says. All right. We love our Richard Delamater. He is our designated stoner, and I don't know where we'd be without him.
Where are my weed smokers at?
Well, he is leading the parade. Bong in both hands. It's not like I got high and started texting Mark. He sent me about 7 emails over the weekend. That might be, maybe it was 6.
That's amusing and fun.
It was pretty funny. I enjoyed it, actually.
I've received a lot of positive letters.
You can reach us at themarkthompsonshow@gmail.com, and you do not need to be in an altered state to do it. Richard is the Hunter S. Thompson of the Mark Thompson Show. Better. You're right, Jim Shields. That's it. He is the Hunter S. Thompson of the... D. Elliott first into the chat to reference comments made by the President of the United States on CNBC this morning. He said the Republicans are entitled to more seats in Texas because he won here so big. Then D says, what a crock. Yeah, I will get to the story of what's happening in Texas. I will get to the latest developments in the Epstein trial. All of that still to come. I think at this time in American history, there are almost too many bouncing balls to follow, so we'll get right into it. I'm going to start. What did we say we were going to start with, Kim? We said we were going to start with law and disorder in the Epstein trial, or did we want to start with what's happening in Texas? I'm going to leave it to you. What would you like to do?
Texas.
Texas? All right.
Texas. Come on.
Say it again, love. What?
They're threatening to arrest democratically elected lawmakers.
Yeah. All right.
The Mark Thompson Show.
All right, let's get into it. This is the story in Texas. It is an escalating clash between Democrats and Republicans. As Kim said, arrests have been threatened. It's all over the expansion of the congressional representation based on this already severely gerrymandered state becoming more severely gerrymandered, and the inventive, creative way in which they have additionally redrawn districts, again, done it in several ways. You could suggest unorthodox would be a kind way to put it. Typically, redistricting happens every 10 years in relation to the new demography that's revealed in the census, that kind of thing. They redistrict, and a lot of the redistricting historically, the gerrymandering has gone on almost since the beginning of our nation. That said, Texas is really leading the parade on how to do it super creatively, and it's quite a creative parade. So to say that is really something. But anyway, they responded to the call from Donald Trump. He wanted 5 more seats there in Texas, and they have found those seats. But this special session that was called by Greg Abbott, and you remember the special session was called because of the Texas tragedy, the flooding. So originally, I think that was the reason they had the special session. At least that was the idea. And really what it's been about in larger measure is the vote on the redistricting and those additional 5 seats. So the Democrats have walked out, and now you have the whole country watching what is a showdown in Texas that is about gerrymandering, but the ante has been upped because there's so much buy-in from the current administration. What do we have first? Take me to... What video do you like most? I like thank you, Tony. That's the one in the gate right now. Let's show a little bit of this. This is short, and it kind of sets the table.
I remember when Trump called Georgia. He called the Secretary of State. He told them, I need to just find 11,780 votes.
She's a Democrat.
What did Georgia say? No. Well, Donald Trump called our governor. And he said, I just need a small change. I just need you to send me 5 congressional members. And what did our governor say? Sure. Give me a minute. Coming right up.
So there you have
it. Republican leaders are...
She's not wrong. I mean, that's exactly what's happened.
The governor of Texas is threatening to send law enforcement to arrest these people, which is illegal because Texas law enforcement officers have no jurisdiction in other states where these Democrats have fled. This is a mess.
Yeah, so as Kim says, they fled to Illinois. And the idea is, and we talked about this yesterday, obviously, but just to reiterate, the idea is that the session isn't full. There's not a quorum with the Democrats all gone, and so there's no way to vote in these new districts. The problem with that strategy long-term is that there is no long-term strategy there because you can't remain absent from the legislature for, the balance of Governor Abbott's term, et cetera. In other words, this is the special session is going to expire, I think, in 30 days. Okay, you can stay away for 30 days, but he can call another special session right away. So the thing I like about it is that it shows the country what's happening. And that's really what the idea is, to bring a lot of attention to this. And it brings to a higher profile this whole issue of screwing with the people's voice, which is really what the vote is, right? But to Kim's point, these Texas Democrats now out of the legislature are being threatened with arrest, and they've been quite open about what they're doing. there was a sit down with them. I think CBS sat down with a few of them. And let's run a little bit of that, and you'll get a sense for what they're thinking.
You know, special sessions in Texas are meant for emergencies, and we had an emergency in Texas. We had a cabin full of 8-year-old girls get washed away in the middle of the night. We had families calling 911, begging for help, only to be told by operators that no help was coming. Ultimately, 137 Texans lost their lives. That's an emergency worthy of our time, our attention, and our action. You know, Greg Abbott is prioritizing Donald Trump with this special session. Instead of taking action to help the flood victims of Central Texas, he is prioritizing trying to steal 5 congressional seats from the people of Texas. This isn't just a Texas fight. This is an American fight that will impact all of us. So Texas Democrats ran into the fight by coming to Illinois to stand up for the people of our state.
So that is, I think, a great summary of where they are and how frustrated those legislators are with the situation and Greg Abbott's leadership. I mean, that guy's not wrong. I mean, you have a real crisis in Texas. It seems like Texas GOP more concerned with heading to Cancun when, you know, temperature gets cold and the grid fails. They're more concerned with serving up to Donald Trump whatever his demands are for redrawn districts than they are with actually addressing the needs of the people in Texas. Again, we're not in Texas. Most of us aren't in Texas. We have listeners and viewers in Texas, and to you, it's quite relevant. But to all of us, it's a reflection of what's happening in America. There is a cult of service to Donald Trump and his demands that is being very much reflected in what's happening in the Texas legislature. Meantime, the calls for the arrests, Kim, they can't do it. As you said, there's no way that this is anything more than performative on the part of Greg Abbott as well.
I mean, I suppose if Illinois said, you know, their law enforcement said, yeah, come on in, we'll allow you to come in and arrest people in our state. But as of now, they have no jurisdiction to arrest people in places that are out of their territory.
Yeah. You have the, is it Mike Nellis who was on X that, you see that there, the Mike Nellis video that Kim has in there about, he was a senior advisor to the campaign for Kamala Harris, and he kind of explains the way that Republicans are running scared. Did we find that or that video, or did I pass on that? I may have passed on it. Sorry about that. No? Anyway, okay. Is this on? Hello? Okay. All right.
Here?
Sorry,
anyway,
I'm queuing it up. Sorry.
Yeah,
I was trying to queue it up.
Yeah, no sweat. I just didn't know if I should keep calling for it, if I should just move on. Yeah. We're knocking around because there's so many facets to this Texas thing. As I say, it reflects a national trend, and it reflects a power grab, right? You all get that. Yeah. This is a political power grab. So with a slim majority in the House, Trump doesn't want to risk the fact that that majority may evaporate in the midterms. So he's found creative ways to ensure that he'll continue to have that majority. And 5 seats in the Texas in Congress from Texas, if the Texas legislature redraws this way, that's going to get him to the finish line. Go ahead, Tony.
The Texas Democrats, as a political guy,
that's Jesse
do you
Waters
think
speaking.
It's smart for all the headlines to come out
He's
and
talking
say
to the
Democrats
senior advisor
ran
to
away from the
Kamala
job?
Harris.
Well, let's take a step back from that for a second. Do you think it's a good headline for all the headlines to say that Republicans are so worried about losing the midterms they decided to rig the maps?
I haven't seen those
They're
headlines.
supposed to do it.
I haven't seen those headlines,
like
and I do know that both sides redistrict, and it's not the end of the world. But to run away from work, I mean, most Americans, they look at that and they're like, they don't like that. You get that, right?
Well, most Americans don't like politicians drawing up their own maps. They don't like the fact that that Republicans are scared they're going to lose the midterms, so they're trying to rig the game like they always do. Look, Texas Republicans could be right now trying to do something to help the American people, help the people of Texas with floods. They're not doing that right now. The Republicans in Congress, they're on recess right now. They're not doing anything to help people.
Well, they're always on recess.
Donald Trump is playing golf.
Mike, you and I agree. Congress is always on recess. And sometimes, and you know what? And sometimes that's a good thing. The less damage they can do. Last question.
Yeah, there is first of all, Nellis is very strong there. But secondly, there's something going on there that is really dangerous. And it's the general perception that's then reinforced, which is, well, it's a good thing that Congress isn't there. It's a good thing that, let's face it, they do a lot of damage. I'm glad. When they're on vacation, it's a good thing for everybody. I mean, it's a glib treatment of what's happening in Washington and a general notion that all politicians are corrupt, everybody's corrupt, the system's broken, everybody's broken the same way. That's not true. I think you can say the American political system is corrupt because of this. It's awash in money. This infusion of money has, by definition, corrupted American politics. But there are degrees of corruption. There is a contribution, a legal contribution to a political campaign. And you can say a huge contribution to a political campaign is already corrupting the system because there's a quid pro quo implied. There is a this for that already implied. But when you take a palatial plane from the Qataris and you spend $1 billion of taxpayer money to upgrade it, that's a different kind of corruption, I'd suggest. When you take $1 million from each and every tech bro who shows up your inauguration, that's a different kind of corruption. The kind of corruption we're seeing in Washington with a huge meme coin purchase. So Trump and his family have made billions of dollars, billions with a B already. That's a different kind of corruption. There are degrees of corruption. Just as there are degrees of cruelty, there are degrees of humanity. Life is a series of degrees of all of these things. And so the glib treatment of, well, it's just, they're all corrupt. Let's face it. All politicians, they all fall into the... No, they're not. The system is corrupted. I agree. But they're not all the same. The lack of humanity associated with, for example, the immigration program right now, the immigration policies, Kristi Noem, Miller, Abbott, these are all people who are operating on a scale of inhumanity and incompetence that is far greater than that which you might find further down the way, even though there might be inhumanity and incompetence elsewhere in the administration.
There was a time when that wasn't okay. There was a time when we wouldn't tolerate that. But the current political climate seems to be the higher the degree of cruelty, the better.
There is a deliberate aspect to the cruelty. You're right. You're absolutely right about that. That's the situation in Texas. We'll continue to watch it for you. And as I say, I think it's a great way to raise the profile of what's happening, which was the idea, but it's not a long-term strategy. And the clapback from Texas, clapback from California to Texas, also New York to Texas. There are other states, blue states, that will try the same thing. That may be the only way to effectively fight fire with fire. So,
The Mark Thompson Show.
Smash the like button for me if you would. It's a thing on YouTube. I know it's crazy. The thing about the like button is that when you hit the thumbs up, if it reaches a certain threshold, we show up in people's feeds where we otherwise would not show up. I have Epstein news. I have Dr. Hassan at the bottom of the hour, the cult expert. Before I get to my guest, Dr. Hassan, I'd like to get to the Epstein news and some law and disorder. We'll give you a dash of Epstein and law and disorder, discuss Epstein in greater detail with Donald Trump, with David Cay Johnston, who will discuss the Donald Trump nexus of Epstein and Trump. Right now, here we go. This is Law and Disorder.
In the criminal justice system, the people,
pimps, addicts, thieves, bums, winos, girls who can't keep an address, and men who don't care,
are represented by two separate yet equally important groups.
A cop, a flatfoot, a bull, a dick, John Law. You're the fuzz, the heat, you're poison, you're trouble, you're bad news.
These are their stories.
Trump administration is debating releasing the transcript of the Ghislaine Maxwell interview with the Department of Justice, according to sources. There's an audio recording of the interview that was conducted with Jeffrey Epstein associate Ghislaine Maxwell. And the administration is considering releasing a transcript of that interview publicly. Now, we didn't know that there was a recording. That's now just been revealed from 3 sources within the Justice Department. And they're discussing, supposedly, within the administration, the actual release of this audio recording, a transcript of it. They have been transcribing and digitizing the recording. Portions of the transcript that could reveal sensitive details like victim names would be redacted, according to sources. But they haven't made a final decision on this, according to these same sources, and this is a developing story. I'd suggest that will never happen. Todd Blanche, the Trump attorney, went down to talk to Ghislaine Maxwell, already a ridiculously unprecedented and obvious move to make a deal to keep Trump out of the Epstein narrative. And so obvious was that deal that they moved Ghislaine Maxwell to a comfy jail from the already fairly comfy jail where she was serving time. So already you see there's no sleight of hand here. Everything's being done openly. But back to the transcript. They discussed, even if they discussed around it, they discussed without question what Ghislaine Maxwell would say, and even maybe implied the likely pardon that will come at the end of the Trump term. So there's no chance they'll release those transcripts unless they do it in some way as to try to take a W on releasing something, and then they redact so much that it's almost worthless. The Trump administration, though, they have a fresh excuse for transferring Ghislaine Maxwell to that jail I described.
The prison camp?
There's yoga. There is pickleball.
Pilates.
Mm-hmm. I mean, they put together quite the spa scene there in this new setup that Ghislaine has found. But she is, and I'll remind you, a convicted sex trafficker. She is not someone who's just been charged, convicted by a jury, and she was in Tallahassee in a federal prison. Sex traffickers are not permitted in this club fed, as it's often called. But the Trump administration and the Justice Department have made a notable exception in the case of Ghislaine Maxwell. And they say that, and here's their new excuse, that after Todd Blanche, the Deputy Attorney General, spent 2 days questioning Maxwell about Epstein's high-profile connections, that there were threats on the Epstein henchperson's life, Maxwell's life. And it was thought that for her to serve that 20-year sentence for her role in the child sex trafficking operation, she might face specific threats that they felt were so great and credible that they wanted to move her to a different location. The reason, as usual, this is such a lame excuse, for starters, is that the idea of this new location is that the security is much more lax. So this prison may not even have any real walls around it. I think Tony might have pictures of it, but if he doesn't, the idea is that this is it almost does have a sort of summer camp feel to it, only your summer is going to go on for 20 years. And the idea is that paparazzi now are taking pictures of her. I mean, if you were really concerned about her safety, you wouldn't put her in a place where an assassin's bullet could reach her so quickly. So it's, again, another piece of what I think is just sort of flimsy rationale for something that is openly reflecting a deal between Maxwell and the DOJ, even if this is an implicit deal. So And finally, in Law and Disorder, ex-Trump prosecutor Jack Smith is now under special counsel investigation. They are looking at this guy who, as you know, was involved in the prosecution and potential investigation of Donald Trump, 2 criminal cases he brought before the election essentially wiped it all away. The Office of Special Counsel confirming it is investigating Jack Smith on allegations that he engaged in political activity because of his inquiries into Trump. Smith, of course, was named special counsel by then Attorney General Merrick Garland. And so his work there at the DOJ was assigned by Garland. The whole thing, again, is absurd, but it takes taxpayer dollars, it takes time, and the administration, I think, hopes it takes headlines, and that's the idea behind now putting Jack Smith under a special counsel investigation. So,
this Calvin makes a really good point, weaponizing the Justice Department. He says Trump is guilty. Wasn't it Trump who was, crying over the Biden administration allegedly weaponizing the Justice Department? And here it is. You want to talk who's weaponizing the Justice Department?
Well, stealing the election that was accused, and that's what Trump tried to do. Weaponizing the Justice Department that he accused, that's what he's actually doing. I mean, it's all projection. Finally, Trump ally Jeffrey Clark should be disbarred over the 2020 election effort. Speaking of stealing the election, a Washington panel recommending the disbarment of Jeffrey Clark, the former Justice Department official who tried to help President Trump in overturning the results of the 2020 election. That was the coordination of fake electors, the out-and-out fraud associated with the undermining of the result of the election. And now the D.C. Board of Professional Responsibilities recommendation will go to the D.C. Court of Appeals for a final decision. And again, Jeffrey Clark, who is clearly corrupt to his eyebrows, he may face disbarment as a result of his role in trying to steal and undermine the 2020 election. And that is Law and Disorder.
Tune in again next time for more Law and Disorder on The Mark Thompson Show.
All right, that's it. Let's roll. Hey, let's be careful out there. Feel it in your soul. The Mark Thompson Show.
All right, let's get a real smart guy in here. Enough of this. I know. You have seen him, perhaps read his work. He is a mental health professional, expert in the undue influence tactics used by authoritarian leaders and destructive cults. Wow, he's met his moment, hasn't he? His expertise includes harmful influence in cases of destructive religious and political cults, of human trafficking, extremist and terrorist groups, one-on-one relationships, families, parental alienation, mini cults, therapy, and self-improvement groups. I mean, it's incredible the work he does. His work as an author and his work generally discussing the situation that America has found itself in, many would say sort of in the thrall of Donald Trump and the MAGA nation that's resulted, has real reflections of his work as a psychiatrist and his work with Cambridge College. He has a doctorate in organizational development and change from Field and Graduate University School of Leadership. I'm just reading this. It's when reading someone's CV would take up the balance of the show, you have a wildly qualified person to speak with. And most of all, I would recommend his book, The Cult of Trump. That's perhaps where we find ourselves most intrigued by his latest work. How about it for Professor Dr. Stephen Hassan, everyone?
Hey,
hello, sir.
Hey, Mark. Good to see you again. And just a quick correction. I
knew there must be one
not
coming.
An
Go
MD.
ahead.
I'm
What is
not
it?
an MD. I'm not a psychiatrist.
You're not a
Thanks
psychiatrist.
for the
Okay.
promotion. But
so the Zoloft I want from you at the end of this interview, forget it.
yeah, I
is what you're
can't
telling me.
prescribe. Sorry
No.
about that.
Okay.
But
All right.
just to remind your viewers, because it's been a bit since we were together last, I got interested in this weird subject because of my recruitment into the Moonies cult at Queens College in 1974, the same month Patty Hearst was abducted by the Symbionese Liberation Army, and was literally in the room with Sun Myung Moon when he said that democracy was satanic and we had to infiltrate the government. And when we took power in America, we would amend the Constitution, and drum roll, we would make it a capital offense for people to break our rules. And as a fanatic, brainwashed cult member, I thought it was a great idea.
Yeah, it's funny. In mentioning you were coming on, I was saying that I really wanted to remind everyone what your history is, because I think it's intriguing in itself, and you've just done it. I mean,
nobody thinks it could happen to them until it happens to them. And, everybody's walking around thinking that I'm too smart. I'm too educated. I come from a good family. I have religious background. And I had a good family, good education, and I was just deceived and manipulated and hypnotized and brainwashed.
I remember that in your story there was something that was, because we've talked about this before and you've written, of course, at length about this. There were a few things that did sort of surprise you. Like when you really got into it, you were sort of thinking, oh, this isn't really exactly what I thought it was going to be. But you kind of blew past that. That's my recollection of that. Is there something to that or not? Not so much?
Really. But I do want to say I grew up 1.3 miles from Donald Trump in Queens, New York. So as a New Yorker, and most people who are from Queens and New York know that he was an asshole. This was a very understood. He was a playboy. He always, didn't pay his employees. He was just a dick.
Yeah, no, you're right.
I'm a scholar, but, he was an asshole and a liar and a narcissist. And when my agent said, I want you to do the cult of Trump, I said, no, I don't do politics. And he said, come on, Steve, you're the expert. If you don't do it, who's going to do it? And I thought long and hard about it, because I grew up post-Holocaust knowing about the Nazis and knowing about Chinese communist brainwashing. And I'm glad I did it, even though it's gotten me largely blacklisted in the mainstream media, because all the big players don't want the public to be educated about psychology and the techniques that are being used on all of us to manipulate us and indoctrinate us. And the cult of Trump has been validated in its fullness. And I'll just add, it was re-released with a short forward by George Conway, who said, yep, the GOP's a cult. And, they're no longer conservatives. They're just kissing the ring and doing what the cult leader tells them, or else.
So this is kind of where I need a distinction. Maybe it's a distinction that isn't important, but maybe it's a distinction that is important. Like, I can hear people going, I get it, guys. Everybody likes Donald Trump. Everybody who voted for Donald Trump's in a cult. I mean, I don't see where it's a cult. I see that they sparked to this populist rhetoric. They thought, hey, I don't love my life. I don't feel like the system has helped me. I don't think it's going to help me. And this guy's saying he's going to help me. So he's singing from a hymnal that I like. And how is that a cult? That's just a message that I'm sparking to. So can you speak to that distinction? And is there a distinction?
I'm glad you asked. This is what I've spent 49 years and doing 5 books and 4 TEDx talks on the subject. First, I would just say, go to my website, freedomofmind.com. You can download this for free, The Influence Continuum. And understand, I think there are cults that are ethical and healthy, and like fans and sports teams and even political junkies who are into being a Republican or into being a Democrat. But you have informed consent. There's no lying. You have respect for conscience, critical thinking. You're not told you can't talk to ex-members or critics or read bad literature that doesn't agree. This is a healthy group. This is what we strive for in a democracy. What I criticize are authoritarian mind control cults. And my dissertation for my doctorate is on my BITE model, which looks at behavior control, information control, thought control, and emotional control to make over somebody in the image of the cult leader or the doctrine, where you can't doubt, where you can't challenge, where you have phobias that if you leave, terrible things are going to happen to you. And very quickly, Mark, my thesis for the Cult of Trump book was that A, Donald Trump manifests malignant narcissism, which is the stereotypical profile of all destructive cult leaders and dictators. It was developed by Erich Fromm based on Hitler. The narcissism plus thinking you're above the law, the pathological lying, the sadistic stuff, the threats, the revenge, the paranoia. There's a whole list in chapter 3, and I compare Trump with Jim Jones and Moon and Hubbard of Scientology. But what I want the public to understand is that there are actual authoritarian cults that comprise the cult of Trump. That's where the public doesn't understand. And I want to explain in particular one branch of the authoritarian cults. It's called New Apostolic Reformation. Have you ever heard that term, Mark?
No,
NAR?
no.
Okay.
I know what those
Because-
words mean, but I've never heard the term.
So
no.
the media has mischaracterized his base as Christian evangelicals, and Christian evangelicals say those are cults. This is not following Jesus. These are self-proclaimed prophets or apostles who say, I speak to God, and God told me that Donald Trump won the 2020 election, and many of them speak in tongues that is known as glossolalia, and I can do it if you want me to demonstrate it, but it's just something that is garbled speech. And then they claim they can do cast out demons and do faith healings, but they manipulate all of these variables: sleep, clothing, language, the list of the BITE model. And people are leaving these groups now. They're especially the people who had an orientation to real Christianity, where Jesus said, stay out of politics. You know, all these Christian nationalists, dominionists, and NAR people, they have an agenda. And it isn't about democracy, separation of church and state, respect for the Constitution, respect for the rule of law. And they all were like, God is using Trump like King Cyrus. King Cyrus was a sinner, but he was God's sinner, and that kind of rationalization. But I want to emphasize with you, Mark, because I know that you want people, you know, to support human rights and rule of law and checks and balances. And I want people to start realizing we need to shift the messaging to the base and not just talk to ourselves who already know Trump is bad and bad news and destroying our country, because there are a lot of doubts. And in particular, the Epstein files, which is where I came in late. I apologize. I had camera issues. But I was listening to the Ghislaine Maxwell discussion you were doing before I came on. He wants it to go away. So he's trying to think, what can I do to give the illusion that we're doing something, that we aren't the deep state, that we aren't the pedophiles and the traffickers ourselves. In the meantime, he's lifting up traffickers and pedophiles regularly, not to mention all the pictures, all of Michael Wolff's 100 hours of interviews with Epstein. But the thing that the public is missing is the Russian connection, because they did a very thorough job brainwashing a lot of Americans to think that there was no Russian collusion in 2016 or in 2020 or in 2024, but there absolutely was and is, and many Russian experts and former KGB officials have said so. And I wrote about it in my 2019 version of The Cult of Trump. Understand the techniques that are being used and they lose their power. And what Trump does is he wants to distract you from the bad thing that he's doing. So he just fired the statistics person saying, you know, they were in the Biden administration, but no, they were doing their job, and it's his bad tariffs and his bad policies that's causing the slowdown and the development of AI, where a lot of big tech are laying off people because, hey, you don't have to pay humans and it can work 24/7, right? So but I really think that we, unlike people who grew up in the Soviet Union or China, our DNA is for freedom. Like we don't fall for this. Like we know this isn't kosher. Like this is not okay. But the question is, are the doers and shakers going to realize we need a strategy and a plan to deprogram tens of millions of people? And I've been volunteering. I've only been doing this for 49 years.
So what would that look like? And I'll just remind you that there is a propaganda machine that is really dominant, and that's Fox News Channel and other right-wing media, most of the radio, that's talk radio that people listen to, et cetera. And those are voters, seniors, older people tend to listen to talk radio, that not exclusively, but I'm just saying that's a demographic that does show up at the polls. So to the extent that we'll have free and fair elections, I don't know what really is going to happen in that regard. But those people are part of that brainwashing, if you want to call it that, or that
I call it brainwashing.
Following.
I've stayed away from the term, but people like it. Just like people like the term deprogramming, which I never liked. But
yeah, no, I know that
de-radicalization or repersonalization.
Radicalization is a real good one. So, but my point is, then so you're up against that propaganda machine on some level. What is the Stephen Hassan approach to getting to what you're talking about, the MAGA core? The only thing that seems to have rocked MAGA, Stephen Hassan, is the Epstein revelations, the revelations that we're not going to see anything on Epstein, that Trump is as big a buy-in on keeping it quiet and covering it up as anyone.
So understand there was an ecosystem of right-wing media, but specific influencers started questioning him, and the Joe Rogans, etc. And Mark, this device is the modern mind control mechanism, because big tech, BJ Fogg at the Stanford Persuasive Lab, developed, the strategy for how to addict people to social media, to get their attention, to get their data, in order to now use profiles of data on us to manipulate us. If we think we're going to get the truth by being on a platform or a source, it's not going to happen. So I tell people real life is where it's at, and following experts and following sources that care about the fact that things are factual. And by the way, there's no such thing as alternate facts. They're called lies or propaganda. And they're trying to do the matrix. They're trying to do a flip and say, oh, the Democrats were doing the coup when Trump was doing the coup. Everything's reversed.
Sure, no, it's all projection that way.
Yep.
I'm getting some in the chat is lighting up, asking me. I know you had some kind of your paths crossed with Ginny Thomas, the wife of Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas. Can you speak to that relationship? Her clear, I'd suggest she's almost a standard bearer for this cult that you're talking about. But describe, if you would. A lot of people in the chat are saying, please ask the professor about the relationship with Ginny Thomas and what went on there.
So I met Ginny Thomas a long time ago when she got out of LifeSpring, which was a large group awareness training cult. She read my first book, Combating Cult Mind Control. She was a fan of mine. She asked me to do a congressional briefing. She even brought Clarence to a counter-cult or a meeting that I attended, and I shook his hand prior to him going on the Supreme Court. And then she and he got radicalized, and she went deep into the QAnon rabbit hole. So we dug up a video of me running an ex-member support group where Ginny had just gotten out of Life Spring. It went viral. All I can say is it can happen to an educated, there's a picture of her at the time, happen to educated, intelligent people from good families, and they can flip. And a lot of people in the cult of Trump grew up in the Mormons and left it, or the Catholic Church and left it, or the Scientology, or the Moonies, or Jehovah's Witnesses, because people don't have clarity. And that's what I'm trying to say in my work. There's clarity in looking at the bite model and deciding for yourself. Can I listen to critics and former members with an open mind, look at the facts, reflect on my own experiences, and understand you want to follow a leader that's trustworthy? You know, and when they say, Biden lied too, Mark, I say Biden lied maybe 100 times and Donald Trump 40,000 documented times. Not to try to make an equivalence, but to just say like this whole claim that they're going to release the transcript. I'm with you. I'm like, that'll
never happen, of course.
This is manipulation.
This is interesting. Leslie says people like discipline and look to be disciplined. Is there a sense that strong men like this generally flourish because of a tendency within all of us psychologically to want to follow strong figures?
So let me explain my perspective, because I've been studying psychology for almost 5 decades. Healthy families, I'm going to use this again, forgive me. Healthy parents understand children. Their job with their children is to steward them to adulthood, to think for themselves, to have their own decision-making capabilities, and to find their own belief systems that work for them. So healthy parents do developmentally appropriate parenting aimed at encouraging exploration, play, making mistakes, learning. However, if you grow up in an authoritarian family or religion or country, and you're corporally punished to obey the authority figure, yes, you're trained to be disciplined, to be obedient to an external authority figure, and you don't grow up to think for yourself unless you exit that mindset and go to college and start realizing the world's a lot bigger than what my family and my religion told me. And that's the good part of the internet, are so many ex-members are being public. And if I may get back to your question, what would we do to have a strategy? And I tried to get this information to the Biden administration when they were in the White House. I said, declare a public health emergency. We have a mind control virus. We need to develop inoculation programs. We need to train media, educators, clinicians, politicians on understanding the difference between ethical influence and unethical. And we need to destigmatize people leaving so they're not shamed, because people will stay in a cult even though they've already gotten disillusioned, but they don't want their family and friends to say, I told you so. How come you didn't listen to me? I told you he was an asshole, or I told you it was a cult. And it happened to me when I got out of the Moonies. I knew it was very not helpful to my recovery to be shamed and blamed. Instead of what I advise people to say is, look, we're all human. We all can trust the wrong people or get deceived by something. You did the best you could at the time with the information you have. Now you have more information. Time to move on, everybody. Yeah, and I would mobilize tens of millions of ex-members to talk share their stories, because hearing someone else's cult story turns the light bulbs on, as opposed to attacking the cult leader, doctrine, or policy head on, which just shuts the cult identity down and sees you as the enemy.
I really think these statements from former Trump loyalists, from MAGA members, those who were real devotees of everything MAGA, rally attendees, etc., those are powerful. Those do punch through. I mean, we can go round and round about this, and you're the qualified guy, and I'm not the qualified guy, but I'm used to debating qualified people, and I would push back on, here's the problem with your plan for Biden. It would have been viewed as its own kind of mind control. Why do you view the opposition as a cult? Why do you view the opposition? And you can say, well, because there are no facts underpinning a lot of, and you would have even more. You bring more to the party, I understand, from a psychological standpoint, and you can justify it. I'm not suggesting what you're saying isn't true, and it's it's water under the bridge, so it doesn't really matter. But under the Biden administration, I just getting to the point that I think that's a tough lift, given the way America is, which is, hey, they have the freedom of thought, they have the freedom of media, and they can say all of these things about Joe Biden. And I would throw this last thing in, and I think it maybe should be the first thing. Joe Biden came across as infirm. Joe Biden came across as weak. Joe Biden was a very bad spokesperson for his own wonderful legislative record, in my judgment. Now, it wasn't everything, but I felt he sadly couldn't rep his record the way Trump does. Trump is just the opposite. Horrible legislative record, full of toxicity for the American people, dismantling all of government. It's an absolute hornet's nest of horror, and yet he reps it in this very strong way, which gets to you, the cult expert and the cult of Trump. Maybe that's all you need, is a really strong front man.
Well, so I said in the book that he was demonstrating a knowledge of NLP, or neuro-linguistic programming, which was based on Milton Erickson, a psychiatrist. Tony Robbins takes some credit for teaching Donald Trump how to use language and to manipulate people. But, you know, it's a matter of form that elicits emotional states versus, you know, policies and content that requires frontal cortex thinking about things. And when people are feeling very scared and uncertain, I know more than the generals. I know more than the economists. You can trust me. I've got this made. And if you repeat it over and over again, we now know from neuroscience, the brain starts acting as if it's true, even though it's the big lie, and Hitler demonstrated the big lie. And I see you have up David Cay Johnston next, and I just want to credit David, because when I was researching the cult of Trump, I was reading his books. Like, he is the man. So like
he is
David,
he is the blessing that I've been given on this show.
He's been tracking Trump longer than anyone. I'll just say quickly, David literally went to Trump during his gambling casino thing with someone was filming him, and he said, I'm going to ask him questions that anyone who runs casinos would actually know the answers to see if he could pick up that the questions were rigged. He bullshitted.
Yeah,
and David got him on camera. It was beautiful, David.
David comes with the math always. Hey, Stephen, so appreciate our time together. Let's do it again, maybe next month or something. I'd love to make these conversations.
I'm dedicated to active resistance, and I really believe in the human spirit and love.
This is the book, The Cult of Trump, and there's a link to the book, the latest edition, under this video. And Stephen, wish you all the best. Really grateful. Again, Stephen Hassan's website is freedomofmind.com.
And it's your mind, and only you should control it, Mark. That's my motto.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Hassan. So long. Talk soon. Yeah.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Wow, I know. A couple of very smart people in the same show. This guy, he's a Pulitzer Prize winner, multiple best-selling author. And when it comes to Donald Trump, he's without peer, has been reporting doing the heavy investigative journalism about Trump for many, many years. Also, his writings about the tax code and the legal systems and the favoritism, essentially, that the system has been historically set up to give the wealthy. Those books are worth cracking as well. Really great stuff from our distinguished guest and regular visitor, David Cay Johnston, everyone.
Hello, Mark.
Hello, Professor
if I
Johnston.
may,
Yes.
I'm familiar with Dr. Hassan's work, and interestingly, I've written a fair amount about cults over my career. The story I left the LA Times over was an expose of the cult in Hollywood, the MSIA, pronounced Messiah, run by a cult leader who claimed that he knew what everyone on the planet was thinking and doing at all times, and had a number of Hollywood stars, among others, following him. And his threats of litigation intimidated one of my editors, and that's when I said I'd had enough. Left the paper after 12 years and went to Atlantic City for the Philadelphia Inquirer, where I immediately ran into the very earliest inklings of the cult of Trump.
David, his BS machine then that goes back to, the earliest days, and that you ran into in Atlantic City for the first time, and then you followed so closely. I mean, there is a strength to that BS, the repetition of the BS, just to kind of continue with the conversation we were having with Dr. Hassan. And I sadly see how effective it is.
It is absolutely very effective, and it's very hard to break through with people. Imagine trying to talk to a Hare Krishna member at the LAX airport when they were ubiquitous at one time. You couldn't go to the airport without running into them. It's almost impossible to break through. And if you do, the break is, as George Lakoff, the cognitive scientist at UC Berkeley, has shown, just tremendous if it's a father figure rather than a mother figure you're breaking with. But it shouldn't surprise us, frankly, that there are so many people who believe in Trump, because for almost 50 years, the conditions of the bottom 90% and absolutely the bottom half have worsened in this country. The Republicans have egged them on. The Democrats, as my late brother said, what have the Democrats done for me? All they do is give in to the Republicans. And at the core of this is economics. The fact is that if you're in the second half of the boomers, so born after 1957, you almost certainly haven't done as well, anybody born from then till now, as my group, the early boomers, or parents before us who lived through the Depression and World War II and then went through this great period of prosperity from the end of World War II until the mid-1970s. And it's government policy. As the Rand Corporation showed after I wrote my trilogy about the economy that you referenced, and they weren't doing this based on my book, it just followed. $50 trillion over a period of about 45 years was quietly taken from the pockets of you and me and everybody listening to this show and transferred through government policies to people at the very top of the economy. And of course, people are alarmed and upset and angry. And if they don't understand why and how this happened, if they don't have the intellectual tools to assess what happened, or they, because of their upbringing, can't accept what actually happened, then Donald, by saying, "I alone can save you," offers them a quick and easy explanation. Just do whatever Donald says and things will be okay. And by the way, we're already beginning to see now in the data, they're not okay. Job growth has essentially stopped. I won't be surprised if it reverses soon. The economy is growing very slowly, and trade both in and out of the country is not improving. Fewer manufacturing jobs. Growing number of people reporting distress economically. And there's a survey out this morning, 60% of Americans are worried about affording groceries. 60%. That is not what Donald Trump promised. And the question is, how far does it have to get before a significant number of people who, they're not necessarily hardcore Trumpers, but they chose Trump over Harris, realized they were sold a bill of goods.
Right. And that group that you speak about is probably the first group that turns or, doesn't show up and becomes disaffected even more than they are. I mean, you're right. And you speak about it so beautifully, that backdrop against which Trump's rise exists is economic. And it's interesting to see the distraction machine kind of go into effect, because every manner of distraction is being offered. And I'd suggest also legit vengeance, like this 2016, looking into the 2016 election. Pam Bondi turns the Justice Department on this grand jury probe of the Obama administration election review. In other words, they're trying to disprove the Russian connection that was pointed to in 2016. They're doing that, I thought, David, really first to appease the president, who wants this vengeful Justice Department, and then also maybe as a distraction. I mean, that on some level, MAGA Nation wants to see Obama, Clinton, Biden all brought down.
So there are three simple things to remember about the actual Russia circumstance. Number one, right after Trump announced in 2015, a Russian emissary sent an email saying that the Kremlin wants to help you beat Hillary Clinton. And Donald Trump Jr. lied and denied about it for a year, lied and denied about the meeting held between an entourage of Russians closely connected to Putin in the Kremlin and Don Jr., Ivanka's husband, Jared Kushner, and Paul Manafort, who had effectively been on the Russian payroll for tens of millions of dollars, who was at the time the unpaid campaign manager, even though he was in financial trouble. We know that happened. Two, Robert Mueller testified in his second round of testimony to Congress that he was not investigating what we thought he was about the Russian interference, that he had been blocked from all of that by Bill Barr. And that tells you they did, like the Epstein files, they didn't want to know. And then the third is, of course, in 2017 or 18 as president. In 2017 as president, Donald Trump invited the Russian foreign minister Lavrov, Ambassador Kislyak, and a quote-unquote news photographer from TASS into the Oval Office unannounced and gave away sources and methods, the most sensitive secrets we have, which is how did we get this information? Who did we get it from? And shortly after that, Russian state television showed a meeting in the Kremlin with a bunch of men in suits, when suddenly the door flies open, big burly guys come in, they throw a bag over the head of the guy at the head of the table. He's never heard from again. And various intelligence sources have said Trump effectively said to the Russians, hey, I know what's going on in the Kremlin. We've got a source. If that's true, that alone would have been grounds to remove Trump. The problem is he's in control of the data. And unfortunately, Biden did not go after this when he was in the White House.
Well, yeah, I mean, Biden really, such an institutionalist, just really didn't want to set some
You want to
bad
be a
precedent.
high road guy, and this is not a high road time. If I can, Mark, before I posted something today on my B-Sky account, my Threads account, and I think I did it Facebook. Jennifer and I spent a week going to the Chautauqua Institution to learn about authoritarianism and why it's on the rise. There were thousands of people who go there every week during the summer to what I call Disneyland for intellectuals. And the night before we went, we were having breakfast at a Hilton hotel when I suddenly realized there was this gathering of racists at the adjoining tables, the conversation they were having and the marks they had. And I thought, there's a herd of cows, a school of fish. What do you call a gathering of racists? So I posted these today. What do you call a gathering of pedophiles? A groping. Child rapists, a Trump. Masked ICE agents, a cowardice. Racists, a hatred. Oh, good, it's up on the screen. MAGA, a fool of. Biblical literalists, a cherry pick of. And finally, pro-lifers, an abortion of pro-lifers.
Oh, my God.
I just think we should be a little more creative, have some fun with all of this, because it can be
call it
too
what it
aggressive.
is, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and I think a hatred of racists, that's what came to my mind, is we were having breakfast and listening to these people who were just scum, hatred of their fellow Americans if their skin wasn't white. And these guys didn't look like anybody to write home about.
Right, right. Well, and it's from that group that you get some of the most intense hate. And I go back to what you were first saying, which is those are oftentimes people who've been left behind economically, and they're looking to see that hate, consciously or unconsciously reinforced by their circumstance. Those people are benefiting. If it weren't for those people, I'd be doing better. And, it's interesting now to see you reference polling. In polling about immigration, Trump is losing the nation. Yeah. Trump wins on the border, but on the general immigration policy day-to-day, Trump doesn't win any longer. The Americans, from a polling standpoint anyway, have turned on him. His approval rating on these other issues, including the economy, is really beginning to show real signs of problems.
Well, this goes to some degree to, I think, what may be the greatest insight of Gandhi, who, after all, without violence, without a revolution, got the British to walk out of India after 200 years. Gandhi said that there is something in the human heart that is repelled, I'm paraphrasing him, but that is repulsed by violence against people who've done nothing to warrant that violence. When they did the march on the salt works, and for a whole day, people stepped forward knowing they were going to be beaten by British authorities and locals who were hired on their behalf to enforce. The whole world was revulsed by this. Any decent biography of Gandhi will recount this story and how people around the world went, "What are we doing here?" And so, pulling mothers from their little children and leaving them alone in the back seat of the car as you haul them off to who knows where. Refusing to provide access to lawyers to people at Alligator, Alcatraz, and presumably elsewhere by asserting you have no rights. There are some videos out there of people who you can see ICE agents saying when they want to stop you, you have no rights. That's exactly what we revolted against the British over. And it wasn't no rights. The British, in fact, acknowledged rights, just not what we thought was a full suite of rights at the time, and which we've expanded ever since. I'm going to talk tonight in Geneseo, about a half an hour south of Rochester, at the Riviera Theater at 7 o'clock, about how to save our democracy. This will be the third or fourth time I've given a talk on this in recent months, and I've got several other invitations that are pending. But there are things we can do. So I think it's very important. Do not lose heart. That's number one. Just do not. I know it's overwhelming. There are times when I feel like there's a tsunami coming, and I'm standing there with my hand up. But we got to do what we can do. And so don't lose heart. Don't ever voluntarily obey, as Professor Timothy Snyder, who was at Yale and left the country with two other professors to the University of Toronto, teaches. Get people registered, and then crucially make sure they vote. And if you live in Southern California, where your vote's not going to change anything in the next presidential election, and there are only a couple of districts it might change something, then if you can afford to do it, arrange now to go to Nevada or Oregon or Utah or somewhere a day or two before the fall 26 elections to get people to the polls. You can also do it by phone from wherever you live if you're part of an organized group. But if you can, you and a second person, you need to have two people to do this, can drive people to the polls to make sure they actually go. That's just crucial. 3.3 million fewer votes in 2024 than in 2020. And with population growth, there should have been at least 6 million more votes, maybe 7 million more votes. We've got to get people to the polls. And some of the people you want to recruit are not going to vote the way you want. That's okay. Better to get people to the polls. We have a larger number if we're going to save our democracy. And it's not at all clear at this point that we will be successful. It's not, we don't have to lose it, but if we're not vigilant and resolute, we will.
First of all, your lectures on how to save the democracy, I think it's, that's a gift. Really, that's the plan we need. Different strategies. Yours may not be the only one.
No, there are many other strategies. Absolutely.
Exactly. But I think some broad-based way in which a strategy and series of strategies can be put together is definitely what's needed. Obviously, lying down, becoming so dejected that we do nothing is not a strategy at all. And to be fair, the rise of Palantir, the rise of the data scrape that went on with the infiltration of all of these institutions of government when Elon Musk went in with his tech bros who had no background clearance whatsoever, and they scraped all these. I worry about the damage done, but nonetheless, there will be another chapter written, and we have to be part of that writing. Right. So one of the things that's punched through David Cay Johnston, I understand it's a salacious story. And I understand that it's a story that involves big money and powerful people, the Epstein story. And its relevance, I think, is immense because of the political damage it's doing to Trump. I mean, this guy who seems to be able to just slide through everything, these moments that would KO anybody else, he seems to really be hobbled by Epstein and his oversteering to try to keep it quiet, pretend like he's releasing things, all the rest. That's not helping him. Tony, don't we have something on do we have something on Epstein? Why don't you? Oh, I have something on Trump speaking. But first, give me a note, and then I'll let you listen to Donald Trump, who just gave an interview today on CNBC. Give me your thoughts on this, and as we do as we pencil it out, give me your sense of how this is damaging Trump and how it might actually affect his political viability going forward.
Well, there is just billowing dark smoke coming out of the White House about this issue. As I reported in The Making of Donald Trump, and I think I may have also said in my 1992 book that's about half about Trump Temples of Chance, he had 12, 13, and 14-year-old children gambling in his casinos. You had to be 21 years old. Nobody mistakes a 12-year-old for a 21-year-old. 19, 18, dolled up, a guy or gal, I get that. It can happen. 12-year-olds, absolutely not. They were given limousine rides and hotel rooms and credit, although that may have been at Caesars Casino. But these were kids who had money to gamble. And when I asked Donald about that, he just dismissed it, said, yeah, I had to pay a fine. Because there's no moral core inside this man. If you go on the internet and do a Google image search and just put in Trump, Ivanka, parrot, start looking at all the photos that come up of Donald with his arms around his daughter starting at about age 10, particularly the photo in the door of his Ferrari sports car, and ask yourself if that looks the least bit appropriate for a father and his daughter. I mean, I've shown these pictures to women, a select group, because they were highly educated, because they were in my social circle and they tend to be highly educated people. That picture right there. The first time I was shown that picture, I was on a plane flight sitting next to a psychiatrist who was a woman who was on her way to testify in a trial about child sexual abuse. And she had ever so slightly photoshopped the faces so you couldn't tell who it was. And she said to me, this is like a Rorschach test. What do you see in that picture? And I said, oh, that's some college freshman, sophomore girl exploring her sexuality and giving it up to her professor. And she swipes, and you see this photo. And I go, oh my God. And there are lots of other photos like this. Donald talked about on the Howard Stern show that 12-year-olds were too young for him. 12-year-olds. So 13-year-olds, they're okay. And lo and behold, what we have, testimony and complaints from numerous young women telling about themselves and other young women who were 13 and 14. One of them giving a very graphic, detailed description of the right way to get Donald Trump off with your hand. I mean, there's an enormous amount of evidence that Donald Trump can survive saying nonsense. He can survive claiming he has made these trade deals that are nonsense. He can survive lying. He can survive Stormy Daniels. I do not believe he has a snowball's chance in hell of surviving clear evidence that he is a repeat child rapist. You got to be really way over into far out, quote, Christian theology land, where we should be marrying off 10-year-olds if they have a period, their first period at that age, to find this acceptable. And that's why they're keeping these files secret, because clearly there are things in there that will be damning to Donald Trump.
Well, the victims' families are saying, David, we'd like to see these these with appropriate redactions, these files released. This whole idea that you're protecting us is just bogus. We want to see this information out.
Right. And the lawyer for a number of the young women was on Lawrence O'Donnell the other night, making exactly this point. What we're seeing, and by the way, they go and have the number 3 guy in the Justice Department, Todd Blanche, who was Donald Trump's lawyer at his criminal trial where he was convicted, go to meet twice with Ghislaine Maxwell and giving her transactional immunity. That is, whatever she said in the meeting couldn't be used against her. And then they move her against regulations from a high security prison to a minimum security prison, which I would argue puts other women in that prison at risk from this sexual predator who continues to maintain, I'm innocent, I did nothing, it's all lies, which is ridiculous. And Donald, has indicated she didn't get a fair trial. There was a rush judgment. That turn on Newsmax and these other right-wing fake news organizations, and they will tell you, oh, there was this rush to judgment. They didn't have anything. They just needed a scapegoat. No.
It was a jury trial.
And tons of evidence.
Oh, my God.
She was the procurer, and she participated in the rapes of these children. And
by the way, the victims say this. What David Cay Johnston is saying is absolutely borne out in victim testimony.
Yeah. So why would an administration do that? Well, for the same reason, Donald has pardoned a whole bunch of major drug dealers. As I report in The Making of Donald Trump, and I'd reported earlier, Donald Trump for a decade was intimately involved up to his eyeballs in business with one of the biggest cocaine traffickers in America. He did extraordinary favors for him, which is a casino owner, especially where you're not to associate with criminals, makes absolutely no sense. But if Donald Trump was in the cocaine business with Joseph Wexelbaum, every single thing he did makes perfect sense. And this is all public record. The failure of every major news organization to report on this. I've offered copies of all the documents to my former editors at the New York Times, to editors at the Washington Post, to people I know at Bloomberg and AP and elsewhere, and nobody wants them. Is one of the most damning things you can say about the business I spent my career in, journalism. There's lots about Donald that people don't know, and trust me, I only tell you things I can prove so he can't touch me. There are much, much more horrible things that I am internally convinced Donald Trump has done that should really scare you, but I can't prove them to the point where I can be assured he can't sue me for them.
Well, David, if you look across YouTube, you can find any number of interviews with women who were in the constellation of people around Jeffrey Epstein, and they speak to the setup. They speak to the fact that these are young models, all under 18 effectively, in many different instances, and some in instances in which there were parties, there were a bunch under 18, and then there were a bunch, handful over 18. And there was definitely a youth movement in the Epstein world, and they speak quite distinctly and quite starkly, might be the word I'd use, about the fact that if you didn't play ball with these older guys who were there, I mean, it was all guys in their older upper 30s and 40s is what I heard one model say. Yeah. They wouldn't get you bookings. Your agency wouldn't get you bookings. I mean,
worse than that, Mark, some of the young women have said they went along, one of them in a 60 Minutes interview, because they were told, if you don't cooperate, we'll have you killed. Now, I don't think they were going to kill people. Maybe they were. I doubt it. But it was an intimidation factor. And they found young women who were homeless, or they had been abused previously, or otherwise. I mean, these were not from healthy, functional homes. And you know what? America's full of young women like that. I mean, the level of parental, sibling, and especially stepfather or stepbrother incest in this country is a lot higher than you want to think about.
Yeah, this that you're describing was the Epstein strategy. They looked for women, the women who worked there as massage people in Epstein's orbit. They were from those homes that you described. But you can see these women, many of whom at these parties and pictures that Tony's showing, they're all under 18. And again, there was an implied and sometimes explicit understanding that, you know, you don't have to do this, but if you don't, you're likely not going to get these model bookings, and your career as a model is really going to be threatened.
And when you turned 18, you suddenly were thrown out because now you're too old. Jeffrey, I think I'm pronouncing her name right, who committed suicide earlier this year because he just couldn't live with what had happened to her anymore. She has told that exact story. And Julie Brown, Miami Herald, formerly Philadelphia Inquirer reporter like me, Julie Brown has done the most extraordinary work for years pursuing this. I mean, you want to read all of her work, take out a short-term subscription for the Miami Herald and go through their archive. You will find it incredibly, deeply disturbing what was going on here. Now, this is not like it's something that's new. Older men in positions of power and very young girls. This goes on all over the world. There's a whole business in Thailand built on this model. But Donald Trump's the president of the United States. And he is not only just a convicted criminal, 34 felony counts, and he would have been convicted in the other cases had they gone to trial, but he's someone who sets a tone for a lot of people about conduct. And the tone that he's setting is absolutely anathema to individual liberty and freedom. He's a disaster that we've got to stop, but it's going to be very hard so long as he has his cult-like hold.
Sure, but that's why I think this conversation around Epstein is worth a beat or two, because it is the one thing that seems to be penetrating this impermeable wall that is around Donald Trump. And so as he does all of these things, you could say that his tariffs are lawless, they're completely illegal, and they may be ruled illegal by a court, as you've talked about. But the idea somehow that he can do these things that are really outside of his legal right, none of that seems to be punching through. But Epstein, wow, people really have whipped their heads around on this. And I know, I get it. Young girls, we're not women. I get it. But we make the point that it's women under 18, girls, exactly. And it's as I say, it's the thing that may be the cornerstone of building a case against Donald Trump continuing. And he is losing support. Before I lose you, although it's already too late, isn't it? I wanted to play you.
Go ahead.
Okay. On immigration. Play me a little bit of that cut for David and Trump on immigration. Here's a little something. And the president was on the Squawk Box on CNBC today. Go ahead.
Back to their country with a pass back in legally, and we're doing things that are very difficult to do and very complex, but it works really well. We're sending them back, and then they're schooling, they're learning, they're coming in legally. We have a lot of that going on, but we're taking care of our farmers. We can't let our farmers not have anybody, these people, you can't replace them very easily. People that live in the inner city are not doing that work. They're just not doing that work. And they've tried, we've tried, everybody tried. They don't do it. These people do it naturally. I said, what happens if they get it to a farmer the other day? What happens if they get a bad back? He said, they don't get a bad back, sir, because if they get a bad back, they die. I said, that's interesting, isn't it? These are very, in many ways, they're very, very special people. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, no,
okay.
What you realize there is that he has a view of the immigrant community as sort of, they're not people, they're workers.
They're subhuman. I mean, that's a fundamental element. The courses that Jennifer and I sat through about fascism, authoritarianism, how you start a genocide, which they are in about the fourth of the 10 stages of a genocide in this administration, are well studied and well known about what happens. The Donald's language there is consistent with his description of Epstein taking his underage spa assistant, presumably Miss Jeffrey, away from him, like it's his property. You'll recall in the 2016 campaign, he pointed to a black man in the crowd who was a supporter and said, "That's my Negro," or words to that effect. No, you're not a human being to Donald. No one is, not even his family. We're objects. And you're seeing here how he's trying to rewrite the story. That's a crucial element because he doesn't know what he's doing. He has no idea. He's getting kickback now from states where farming is important, particularly the 8 Midwest states and California, which he doesn't care about at all. And the need for farm workers to harvest crops. We're going to send them back and they're getting an education. They're going to come back. You don't need an education to, pick lettuce. It's not how it works. He's just trying to come up with some way to obscure and justify. So, don't lose heart. Don't stop paying attention. Don't demand perfection from the people who are trying to deal with Trump. I see everything every day. I see things and I go, gosh, Senator, that's not the way to ask that question. Okay, that's fine. At least you asked the question. I support your efforts to get at the truth of this. Don't make as the old saying goes, don't make the perfect the enemy of the good.
Sure.
And recognize this isn't going to get fixed overnight. We have to stick to it. And if we are successful in stopping all of this, that's not the end. I'm reminded of the day the Los Angeles City Council finally passed a law to address all the spying by the LAPD that I had been exposing in the LA Times. And one of the key players in it turned to me in the city council chamber and said, "Well, at last it's over." And I said, "No, it's not. It'll never be over. We need police intelligence functions and we need to control them. And 10,000 years from now, the Los Angeles City Council is going to be debating what's the appropriate level of intelligence gathering by the LAPD. It's part of the human condition. As soon as we succeed, and we're going to succeed if we're resolute, then we have to start working on the unenforceable provisions of the Constitution, the rules that Donald was able to get around and manipulate to his benefit, the Supreme Court that has made itself, by its own choice, very political and Trumpian, and how to have a more perfect union. That work never ends. If you want to live in a free society, it is part of your life's work.
And the work on the other side never ends. So the pushback is important on everything all the time. David, thanks for staying a little late with us. Really always appreciate you. David Cay Johnston, everyone.
Take care.
So long.
The Mark Thompson Show.
It was great. I loved it.
How would you handle this? We could try ignoring it, sir.
Morning.
You cannot say you love your country.
Where are my weed smokers at?
Stay at home and get baked.
Right on, everyone. Nellifidian says Joseph Smith's cult didn't end when he died. Neither will Trump's cult when he dies. Yeah. Well, I'm not looking for it to end. I mean, I'd love for it to end. I don't think it will. But if you could turn down the effects, I'd be very happy. Yeah, I'd really be quite delighted by that. Kim, I haven't had a chance to even have a cup of my Coachella Valley coffee today. So good. You heard Gary Dietrich talking about it yesterday. And the tea is wildly popular. Coachella Valley coffee tea.
Turmeric chai, which has the lion's mane in it. And I love just looking at it and smelling it. And then it's good. I had my mom drink it last night, little sips of it, because it's supposed to offer benefits to brain health.
Oh.
So this is a good thing, I'm thinking. And
absolutely. I love it.
It's got a little spice to it, a little kick, but it's good.
Loving it. Well, you can get it all. Try that Clarity blend. And by the way, as there's a tea, these refreshing teas that help with mental clarity, according to much of the literature. I just like the way they taste.
Mhm.
CoachellaValleyCoffee.com is where you find it, and this is the best coffee on earth. It's a boutique roastery, and all of the coffee is hand-roasted. It's sourced from women-owned businesses that are seeded with money. They do tremendous outreach, and they have now for years to help women lift up their communities and grow, and these crops oftentimes make up the beans that you find at Coachella Valley Coffee. So hand-roasted, delivered to you, CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. Again, not just coffee, tea, spices, wonderful offerings, tasting notes, and profiles, tasting profiles underneath everything. So go to their website, but this is the important part. Load up your cart, anything you want. Definitely use our discount code MARKT at checkout. You'll get 10% off. All right, CoachellaValleyCoffee.com, MARKT at checkout, 10% off. So proud that they're our sponsor of the show and love our relationship with Coachella Valley Coffee. So, wait a minute. Oh,
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Shadow Stevens.
Shadow always wants
This
a chance.
is the Mark Thompson Show. Keep it to yourself.
I love my shadow. All right. I'm reminded that right around this time on Tuesdays, we visit with our pal. He is the former tech writer at USA Today, got rid of that after years writing about technology for USA Today, went out on his own. Now he's got that big money YouTube deal going with Photo Walks TV. How about it for Jefferson Graham?
Hello, Mark.
Jeff, changing the vibe. We've been doing a lot of politics and, all of that stuff. Away from all the mess is your world of technology. What do you have for us today, sir?
Well, first, I sent some pictures to augment what I'm going to tell you about to Tony, but I wasn't sure. Is Tony there today? Do we have Tony?
Tony is here.
Okay, so he's got what I sent. Google sent out a release today about how you could use Gemini AI. Gemini is the name of Google's AI program. You could use it to create a 10-page storybook. It'll make up a little story for you and draw all these pictures and how cute it'll be. But in typical Google, they announce something, but you can't get it. They announce it and they say it's rolling out. It's rolling out. So it's going to eventually, hopefully soon, come to our Gemini apps. I know, Mark, I know you've got the Gemini app on your phone and you use it all the time, right?
I will by the time they roll it out.
And by the time they roll it out. What I was able to create a little story. That's what I sent to Tony. They wouldn't do a storybook for me, but I did a little story about this guy that sat in his garage all week long and he never spoke. He doesn't speak to anybody. He keeps his mouth shut until Tuesdays at 12:40. It's the only time he opens his mouth.
What?
And the special day finally arrived. The man sat down at his small desk and carefully arranged his microphone and headset. He opened his computer and with a single click, his silent world was ready to connect with the bustling energy of the Mark Thompson Show.
Oh my God.
It's fantastic.
I am amazed. Wow.
So maybe we'll get it in color soon.
That is really cool.
Yeah, go ahead, Mark.
No, I was just, I'm really astounded by the power of AI, and it's being used in so many ways. It's everything that they said it would be. And it's funny, when you come on, you do remind us that it's sort of not ready for prime time all the time in every iteration that they've offered.
Not all the time. They rush these releases out, and then it takes a while till they get to the consumer. And I use ChatGPT every day. It's replaced Google for me. It's just easier. You get more information. You don't have to go back and forth. And I'm amazed at how good it is. And they certainly know a lot about me. If I mention any community, any town to ask a question for, they'd say, that would make a great episode of Photo Walks TV. Boy, is that a photogenic place.
What is happening to all that information that you're talking about? When we ask ChatGPT or whatever it might be, and as you say, it knows more about me, it is great. I mean, can be this enthusiasm about the results you're getting, but should it be matched with any anxiety about all the information that it has and maybe sharing?
There is a school of thought that says you shouldn't use it at all, that the minute you put something in there, they're going to learn that little part about you, and they know it forever. It's up there. The impression I got from when I asked questions is they're just doing a better round of searching of the internet than Google is. And that's where all the information is coming from.
I also would say, maybe to add on to this, and I don't know, I mean, that's why I ask you, I think when you enter something into a Google search, that information is known, and they, as we know, build a picture of who you are, what they can market to you, and all the other things associated with your Google searches through time. So you're probably giving up all that information on some level anyway, right?
Yeah, I think for the $20, they're not trying. I pay $20 a month for ChatGPT. For the premium access, you can ask more questions. I don't feel sold to. So when you're doing this stuff on Google, you're getting sold. Now, speaking of ChatGPT,
well, hang on a second. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, no, I was just going to, in the chat, Inlay says Grok blows ChatGPT away. Musk or no Musk. Grok 4. Do you know?
Yeah. Grok is the Twitter AI tool that has pro-Nazi stuff all the time.
Oh, so if you're a Nazi, it's probably the thing you want, though, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, and it's basing all of its information based on the hate that's on the former Twitter. So I would stick away. I would not be going there. But
unless you're what? Yeah. Unless you're a Nazi. Is that what you're telling me?
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
What?
I don't know. I don't use it. So
I was just going to say,
go ahead now, please.
ChatGPT announced that they're adding a new tool in there, suggesting that you might take a break. You've been using it for too long. Why don't you stand up and walk around the house a little bit?
Are you kidding?
No, I'm not.
They're actually adding a tool that evaluates how long you've been on it and will recommend stepping away from the platform?
Yeah.
That's wild.
Yeah, I think that's one of their post-social look at how great we are things. Apple is working on a streamlined version of ChatGPT to introduce at some point in our future. As you know, it was June of 2024 that they announced all these great AI features that would be coming to the iPhone, and most of them never got done because they just, for whatever reason, the world's richest company couldn't get it together to hire enough people to make it work. So.
And the Apple acquisition of other AI technologies, where does that stand?
I don't think they've acquired.
Shouldn't that be their plan?
That should, but I mean, I'm not going to tell them how to run a company because I think they're doing something right. They announced the other day they have sold their 3 billionth iPhone since 2007, and that is really the reason that the company is doing so well, is they just market to that base. One thing on their earnings report that they announced, which I thought was really interesting. So they had the biggest earnings of all time, even in this world, this economy. And they said the reason was that people were rushing out to buy Apple devices before the tariffs came in. Right. So we have talked a bunch here on the show about how I expected the new iPhones to be more expensive. They just said it right there. It was right there in the earnings report.
Yeah. I mean, it was the rush that we all were part of. Like, what do I need to get before the tariffs kick in? And so there it is. Now, there'll be, I would suggest, a corresponding downfall on the other end with tariffs in place. And I just wonder to what extent Apple, I was reading that Apple and some of these tech companies do get breaks along the way and that there are some loopholes. So I don't know how that all shakes out. And when it comes to tech purchases, how big a bullet will people take? You know, Jeff, it seems like some of these tech companies are going to try to swallow some of the tariffs, and then at some point it has to be passed along to the consumer.
Yeah, well, I think most of the companies are passing it on to the consumer because they have to please the shareholders. The thing about the tariffs is, how much is it? I mean, it doesn't change every day. That we just don't know. But you can assume it's at least 10%. It's at least the new iPhone will be $100 more.
That's right.
Right?
Yeah.
At least $100 more. But cars are more expensive. Consumer goods are more expensive. I bought a chocolate bar at the airport last week, my friend. It was a Hershey bar. Any idea what I spent for that, Mark?
Oh, that's a great question. Jefferson Graham bought a Hershey bar at the airport last week. How much was it? I'm going to, I'll start us off if nobody else will speak up. I will start us off. I'm going to say it's $9.
Oh, no, I did not spend $9. I spent $5.75, which to me was the most expensive Hershey bar I'd ever bought in my life.
All right. Well, as I often say, you're not paying for the Hershey bar. You're paying for the ability to buy the Hershey bar there at gate B17. That's right. Yeah. You're paying for it being there, and they know they have you hostage, and you're going to pay because you want that Hershey bar. So.
It's also a shareable Hershey bar because it's the bigger Hershey bar.
I see.
Well,
Well, the big,
but I will say, Mark, I will say I was in the 7-Eleven off premises, wasn't at the airport, and it was in the $5 range.
Oh, really? So it was.
Candy
so
bar.
it's offering you about. I would have thought, honestly, I really would have thought $9. I mean, the water you buy is like $7.50 or something like that. You know.
Really?
So.
And the magazines that used to be $3 are now $20. Have you noticed that? And they're not really magazines; they're really biographies. Have you noticed that?
I hadn't noticed that. I hadn't noticed that.
Yeah, they're like Rolling Stone will have a Fleetwood Mac issue and an Eagles issue with every interview they'd ever done, and Time and People will do it on celebrities. There's probably a Lonnie Anderson bio People magazine edition out already.
You never wrote about rock and roll or about entertainment. Rock and roll, I would see you as a music guy. You never wrote about rock and roll or music?
I did.
You did, yeah. That I can totally see, yeah.
Yeah.
But tech is really the thing that sparked.
Well, I also did TV. When I started my career, I did 15 years of TV coverage.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I see you.
Shows like Greed. There was this great announcer on the show, Greed, that I used to love.
Greed was a great story. I did the announce on Greed. It was something like, from Los Angeles, the greatest game show in history. Ladies and gentlemen, get ready for Greed. It was that kind of open. And it was Dick Clark. And Dick Clark didn't pay any money. The company is notoriously frugal, cheap, some might say. And I said, I just don't want to do it. My agent called me with it. And I said, it's not enough. I feel like they're taking advantage of me. And so the Dick Clark people called me, and I met Dick Clark. He was charming and lovely. And everybody at Dick Clark is so nice. I mean, they were really cool. Anyway, they said, we'll make this deal. Do the pilot episodes of Greed for this very little money. And if it gets picked up and goes to series, then we'll pay you your rate. And so that's what we did. And it went on the air. It was on for 3 seasons, I think. And it was a big success. So, yes, thank you. And the announce was the thing that really got...
It was all for that voice. It was all for that voice.
Ladies and gentlemen, get ready for Greed.
Was the top prize $1 million?
That is my top prize.
No, not yours. No, for the contestant.
Oh, no, I think that was $1 million. And yeah, I think you're right. The top, there it is. It was a good show. I liked Greed. Of these De Niro films, I'm just looking at which were the first. Oh, I missed it. Yeah. There it is. Tony's got that was the announce came in over the beginning. From Los Angeles, the greatest game show in television history. Ladies and gentlemen, get ready for Greed. Strap in, sit down. Get
Did you do other
close.
games? Mark, did you do other games besides Greed?
Oh, I did. Oh, yeah, I did. Who's Smarter Than a Fifth Grader? That was a great little run. That was like a different kind of announce, though. It was like, who's smarter than a fifth grader? You know, it was like that kind of fun announce. And of course, I did American Idol. But there's Chuck Woolery, who was the host of Greed. I think he became like a real right winger just because
He did.
So,
he's
no
longer
Deal of the
with us.
Century was great. You're right. Deal of the Century, Champagne Wishes. Those were. I love game shows. Love them. So Greed was good. Rick says, yeah, Greed was good here. All right, Jeff, love you. Thank you. Check out Jeff on YouTube, Photo Walks TV. He shows you why you need a selfie stick He shows you how to shoot with your drone. He shows you all the wonderful nooks and crannies of this great country. And he is ours, and now he is yours. Photo Walks TV. Thanks, Jeff.
Thanks, Mark.
All right, my friend. Good to see you, sir. Good to see you.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Noe Marie says Congress isn't there because Republicans fled the vote. Congress isn't there because Republicans fled the vote. That's exactly right. Congress, the U.S. Congress, isn't there because Republicans fled the vote on the Epstein files. That is a reference to two things. One, the fact that Democrats fled Texas because they didn't want to vote in a legislature that would clearly rubber stamp the new gerrymandered district in Texas. And that's a reference to the Epstein files and the cover-up that is so intense that the Washington Republicans all left. They closed Congress down early so as to not have to vote on the release or vote against the release of those Epstein files. What are Mark Thompson cult members called? Asks Trevor Starr in Hollywood. Markies? Thompsonians? No, I like the way you're thinking, Trevor. Markies sounds a little... I don't know.
Marquis sounds like the latest roofie.
Yeah, it,
Did you get a Marquis in your cup? No.
I don't know, but I like how you're thinking. Where's my cult?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think we have a name for it for them.
My cult of goodness and niceness. How come we can't come up with that? Richard Delamater for $2. He is our official stoner. And as someone pointed out, Hunter S. Thompson. And when it comes to mind-expanding drugs, Richard Delamater is the guy. Has Mark ever done LSD? Yes or no? No, I have not. And it always has scared me a little bit. But the more I read about it through the years, and, of course, it was used as a psychiatric treatment. If you watch the documentaries, I believe, on Cary Grant and on some pretty notable celebrities who are struggling with various psychiatric issues, you see how LSD maybe isn't the demonic chemical that everyone, or chemical concoction that everyone's talking about. I don't know, but the answer is no. I've never done it. I'm kind of a, too much of a, I worry about losing my mind. Richard Delamater says also, boy, it's a big Richard Delamater day.
It is, yeah.
Clarity blend of Coachella Valley coffee has mushrooms in it. I'm in.
I will say
I don't taste the mushrooms. I'm drinking it right now.
On the mushroom tea, the turmeric chai, I like it cold better than hot. It tastes better cold.
I like my tea served cold, like my revenge. DD21 says, Mark, just finished Teacher of Auschwitz. Great read. Thank you. We had the writer, the author of Teacher of Auschwitz on. It's a true story, and it's a remarkable story. And thank you, DD21, for noting it. Teacher of Auschwitz. If you haven't heard that interview, that conversation, you can find it. Just Google it here on, meaning, look in YouTube on the channel, and you'll find it.
Google it. The author, Wendy Holden. So
talented, and she's written about a lot of things and written novels, etc. But this is a real showstopper. So so glad you found it, and so glad you enjoyed it. There it is. Tony's got the cover up now. In a place of death, he taught children how to live. The Teacher of Auschwitz, and by Wendy Holden. You may wonder how you could teach, how you could even live, how could there be any natural back and forth with kids in a death camp like Auschwitz? Read the book and you'll understand why. It's pretty amazing, that story. Janny says on the Cary Grant LSD thing, Cary Grant talked too fast. Earlier, he had to be on speed or something. Hitler and Putin used uppers, it is said, says Janny. Oh, there's a rich a history of drugs being used by awful people. I used Cary Grant as an example because he's clearly not an awful guy and was such a good actor and Hollywood icon. So,
And we had Sam on who wrote a book about all the famous people through history, not all, but many of them who use drugs and that you wouldn't think or know.
It's a thing, man. It's a thing. And I have to say, just because we're talking about drugs, and I don't mean that all roads lead back to our Lord and Savior, Donald Trump, but Trump is threatening pharma tariffs of up to 250% because you're not paying enough for prescription drugs already, everyone. So now he is threatening, this just happened today, to impose tariffs of up to 250%. That's the highest rate he's discussed to date. He just in this CNBC interview. We'll run a lot of that CNBC interview tomorrow. He says in 1 year, 1.5 years max, it's going to go to 150%. Then it's going to go to 250% because we want pharmaceuticals made in our country. Yeah. And while those plants are being built, not really, of course they won't be, Americans will be breaking themselves over drug prices if that really happens. Mark's cult should be called Remarkables. I like it. Now
that's good.
We're talking. I'm in.
Ooh, it's a wild idea, but it just might work.
It might.
That's
might.
awesome.
That's
I love
very
it.
good. That is Gone Fishing. Please make a note. Gone Fishing gets extra points for the day. So now tomorrow, I will run pieces of the Donald Trump interview on CNBC. I also have news of Bernie Sanders and Ocasio-Cortez. I have an additional Law and Disorder. I'll update the Epstein revelations as they come in today, and more. I'm a Remarkable, says In the Moment with Paul Sisler II. Well, that's a start, and that's how movements begin, my friends. They start with Paul Sisler II. That's right. All great movements in America start with Paul Sisler II. And I'm excited.
John Rothman is off tomorrow, but we have David Katz coming in a day early, and Belinda Weymouth will be here as well.
Oh, that's right. Thank you, Kim. Because of a scheduling thing on Katz's calendar, the brilliant former federal prosecutor and amazing genius legal analyst David Katz comes in tomorrow instead of his normal Thursday spot. He'll be here in place of John Rothman and Belinda Weymouth with It's the Planet Stupid. Wow, what a day, man. The days are really going by quickly. Tony, thank you for all your help today. You've been great with all the picks and all the stuff you manage. And Kim,
how are you?
Appreciate you as well. Thanks, everyone. And now,
I'm Shadow Stevens for the Mark Thompson Show. Bye-bye.
The After Party Live is being prepared even as we speak.
Out of time. Bye-bye.
Out of time. Bye-bye. Thank you. Bye, Kim. Bye, everyone. Bye-bye.